Mhm. Okay, got it. All righty.
Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Come, go out. What are you doing?
She's leaving in case she coughs.
Okay.
Okay. So it's so good to see you again. And gosh, I don't think we haven't spoken since I think the last time we spoke, we spoke about the Black Panther film. I think the last film we spoke about might have been Freedom Summer. I'm not sure. But it's always great to see you. And I was just thinking about the first time I met you was when Ave was still with us. And it was about Soldiers Without Swords, the Black press. And you still, like, this particular film seems like it brings everything together. The Black Panther Party, your documentation of the power of Black press. Yeah, I mean, even Jonestown kind of shows up in the way that all of these people were massacred
Right.
on camera. I'm like, wow. I mean, you really tell you are a really good storyteller. You and co-director, you really tell a really, man, powerful story about something that a lot of people don't know about. So I was wondering, just, to sort of start, why did you want to tell this particular story now? I know it's the 50th anniversary, but you just seem to, like, in your trajectory as a director, you always tell the story that we need to hear in the moment that we need to hear it.
Well, thank you so much. I think it was a film that I've thought about for a long time. I mean, a long time, like 20 or 30 years.
Mhm.
And I think that we reached a point, personally, in my development as a filmmaker, that I thought that I could tell the story, and I could tell it, in the way that it needed telling. Also, I thought that a couple of years ago, I realized that so many of the people that were involved in Attica, the prisoners, the observer committee, so many others, we're getting up there in age, and it might not be a film that I could tell in the same way 10 or 20 years from now, and that I really needed to tell the story now, and that proved to be true. I think in a way, though, it's a story that's evergreen, and with that I mean that the story would have been important 10 years ago. It's really important now. It'll probably, unfortunately, be just as important 10 years from now.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah. I just love meeting the men, um, the ones that we met just through all of that. Boy, this country is really about documentation, isn't it? Even the bad stuff. I mean, like, you got Nixon talking to Rockefeller and it's like, not even thinking about the future that we're going to hear them incriminating themselves, but just to hear about these, the way that they wanted to make sure. Maybe we should tell the audience what the story is. Maybe some people don't know. So why don't you give, like, the quick synopsis, and then we can talk a little bit so people know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're really right. I mean, so many people don't know anything about Attica. We had like an informal poll with people that work at Firelight, our company, and probably 25-30% of the people had never heard of Attica. They had no idea, when you say Attica, what it was. Attica was and is a prison, 250 miles from New York City, in the country, way up in New York State, and it's a maximum security penitentiary. In 1971, over 1,000 inmates took over the prison in a spontaneous action, and really were protesting the mistreatment that they were subjected to. They held the prison for 5 days because they had over 30 hostages. They had over 30 guards and civilian workers that they were holding hostage. During that time, there was a negotiation to try to settle the takeover. One of the things that's most important about the Attica uprising is that from the very first day, the prisoners invited the press to come in. They wanted the press to come in and film everything. They thought that by the press coming in, that they would be protected. If they were on camera and the whole negotiations were transparent, that they would be protected. And so that for me as a filmmaker is just a gold mine, because there's incredible footage of the day-to-day life at Attica during the rebellion, from the prisoners digging latrines because the water was cut off, to building tents to live in, to passing out food, to negotiating at the table, and we hear the sound of the prisoners' demands and what the prisoners want.
Mhm. Yes, yes. And I just wanted to, because it's a real graphic tale, not because you want to sensationalize anything, but because there was bloodshed, and the parallels between our ancestors, those of us who are here because of enslavement, and what's happening in the prisons. And that particular prison, graphically, it's like, like it's no stretch. It's just like, oh my goodness, you're sort of like stepping back into a history that's not past, is present. And so I just wanted to take a moment of silence just to honor those men who thought for a moment that this democracy would work for them. Just a moment, they were hopeful and grossly disappointed. But like some of the men you interviewed said, we walked on the glass and we suffered what they told us to suffer. We crawled through feces because we had to be witnesses. If we all died, then no one would know.
Right.
Yeah, so I just want to take a little moment and just say ashe for their memory and their belief and their lives, which do matter. Ashe. Yeah. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you if you want to talk about you and your co-director and how you lined up all these people, because you had a multiple vantage points. It was like about witnessing from outside the prison, witnessing inside the prison, witnessing as journalists, but also people like, like the reporter, just Johnson, is that his name?
Yeah, John Johnson.
Yeah. He said when he went in, folks were calling him that knew him when he was, because most of the people there, well, all the people there, they weren't from Attica. Nobody. I mean, like Attica was like one of those towns like Angola in Louisiana.
Right.
And also like San Quentin. San Quentin is a city. These places where everybody works there at the prison. The prison is the major industry, if you could think that is something healthy. So yeah, just talk about sort of how you lined up, the cast, and how you and your co-director, how you all, did this dance, because it's marvelous. It hurts your heart, but it's important. I made myself look.
Yeah, I mean, we knew from the very beginning that it was a story that had so many different elements, and that was one of the things that made it really attractive. that, that there were the prisoners in the yard who had taken over the prison. They invited the news media in. And so we were able to find John Johnson, who was a big time reporter in New York City, who went in and was there for the 5 days of the takeover, and another guy named Stuart Dan, who was a reporter from Buffalo, New York. We knew that we wanted to try to get the hostages' families to talk about, how they were feeling, while their husbands and fathers were being held hostage, and we knew that Attica, the town, was a character in the film, and we wanted to also hear from them about Attica, the town, which is like, an all-white town, 250 miles upstate from New York City, where the main industry is the prison and dairy farming, and we really wanted to hear from them about that, and the observers who come in, the former prisoners, the prisoners at that point, invite what they call the observers committee. So they invited people to come in and help negotiate. And those were people that they thought would be sympathetic. So, Clarence Jones, who was publisher of the Amsterdam News, John Dunn, who was a senator and was very concerned about prisons, and many others. So we also wanted to hear from them. And then we hear from National Guard, 2 National Guardsmen who were sent into the prison with the takeover to be medical help. So we wanted to kind of get a kind of a 360-degree view of what was happening, not only in the yard, but outside the yard, not only outside the yard, but in the town, not only in the town, but in New York State with Governor Rockefeller, not only in New York State, but across the country with Richard Nixon, who was really behind the scenes, pulling the strings of so much of this, pulling the strings that were attached to Nelson Rockefeller, who was governor of New York, but really wanted to be president of the United States, and felt that he had to be tough on crime. He had to be kind of in favor of law and order, which was Nixon's term when he was reelected.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's so many echoes, that say, yeah, this is now. Yeah, that's now too. And this is now, when we're watching the film that's historic, but it's also present, because some of the issues that are raised don't just affect people who are incarcerated, they affect other people, like other Black people. And we think about, the whole different movements like Black Lives Movement. We think about what happened, during 2020. But we also think about what happened in 2021 around the coup, like there was a coup d'etat attempt for this nation. And, democracy could have really been gone. And you think about the parallels between a Nixon and a Trump. And I just love the juxtaposition of the voices, like you have George Jackson, you have Malcolm X, and then you have in the person, you have, Dr. Clarence Jones, who was Dr. King's attorney, and he smuggled out letter from the Birmingham jail. And you think about the letter from the Birmingham jail. What was that all about? That's a jail. And King is writing to the white citizens committee, something or another. And then we're here at Attica, and what are these people saying? They're using the N-word. They're saying, kill them all. I mean, it's like, when we hear the reporters talk about, the venomous, calls and the way that they don't see the humanity of these people, and all they want is, like toilet tissue and soap and healthcare and decent food. you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, that one of the things that we have to, be clear about is the demands that the prisoners make are small, most of them. That demands are, as you say, they were given one roll of toilet paper a month. They were fed on 21 cents a meal, 63 cents a day. They just wanted to be fed decent food, to have things like you said, soap and toilet paper. And to be treated, like human beings, as they say over and over again. We just wanted to be treated like human beings. And one of the things that's clear, in the film is that the state had agreed to 28 demands of 30. So they were very close to ending this thing. But it really hinged on the idea of amnesty, and the prisoners insisted that they get amnesty, and they wanted amnesty not for the crimes that they committed outside prison to get them in prison. They wanted amnesty for anything that happened during the riot, because they really felt and they were scared that they could be brought up for so many charges, and they thought, rightly or wrongly, that they could be brought up as a whole, like we're going to just prosecute everybody because we don't know who did what, so we're going to prosecute everybody, for kidnapping, for destruction of government property, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There were a number of charges that they could have been brought up at. So they wanted amnesty, and really that on that one point, the whole thing that happened at Attica really hinged.
Hmm. Yeah. And over, we hear how it didn't have to happen like that. And then the weather is also a character in the work. I mean, you're an artist, so the work is like hecka beautiful, and we see all these lovely nuances, and we, like the metaphors are really clear. I mean, but you didn't plan it. It just, the rain and the cold and all of this. I mean, it happened, but as an artist and a storyteller, you know how to make these connections. And I was wondering if you could talk about how, sort of how this impacted you. There's a lot of silence around this story, and there's a lot of secrecy around this story, and maybe there's some shame. I don't know. But how do these things, like when you tell these kind of stories, how does it land with you? Like sort of what's still with you after this story? That one more story that you have, like you're like a August Wilson. I don't know how many cycles you're going to be doing, but you're telling our story, which is our nation's story. And so I just wanted to sort of like sort of what is still there in you from this journey.
Well, first, I have to say that I'm very humbled, to have my name mentioned in the same sentences as August Wilson. So I'm just humbled by even the thought of that. I think that it's a real honor to tell the story of Attica, and that that's how I look at it, and that I'm trying to just do my best to tell this story in all its nuances, to move an audience, because that's what film does best. Film uses so many of your senses, and and in a way that most other things can't. So you're seeing it, you're hearing it, you're feeling it, and we're really trying to use all those things and to make you feel, not only see it but feel it as a story. So that's what we're trying to do. And I mean, I think I take away a memory of the prisoners, the former prisoners, and the fact that there's still people in prison today. One of the greatest lines in the film is on that first night, when they take over the prison and they're outside in the yard sleeping outside, and this guy says that it's the first time he's seen the night sky in 22 years, and that's just wrenching. And the fact that there's over 2 million people in prison today in this country, disproportionately Black and brown, who are not going to see the night sky. And that is something that I take away from the film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So talk about the various witnesses that you invite from the prison, these men that are, that survived this, and I presume that they're free now. And then also, we already talked about the families of the hostages, and what happened there, and them reflecting on that particular time. And I was just wondering, is there any, like, the town and the feeling, like in Attica, like, is there any like remorse? Did this change the way the Black and white people? I mean, I don't think any Black people lived there at that time. I don't know if any Black people live there now, but I was wondering, like, after this, did people get sort of change their attitudes? Because, like, it was pretty bad. I mean, about
No,
as
and
bad as it get.
no, I mean, for the most part, I don't think people have changed. It probably even hardened some people's attitudes. People in Attica town, many of them still believe that the prisoners killed the guards. That 10 guards were killed, and they were all shot
Mhm.
by law enforcement as law enforcement tried to take back the prison. But some people in Attica still believe that the inmates slit their throats, which was reported on the news the first day, and then it was retracted because no throats were slit at all, in the words of the medical examiner. So it's kind of hardened them, and I don't think it's gotten any better. One of the prisoners, former prisoners, that talks in the film, went up there because there was a 50th commemoration of Attica in September of this year. And he went up there with his wife and family. And when he got there, he realized that he was the only one, from that side, and all the other 200 people were townspeople. And he said, they looked at him with such hate that he just got back in his car and said, come on, let's just go. Let's just go. Let's leave. So I don't think there's been much, too much change in the feelings of the town. I wish I could say there was, but I don't think that in general there's much change.
Wow, wow, yeah. And I always like it when we're looking at a historic moment, and you bring us forward to what ended up happening insofar as like lawsuits for wrongful death. And I just kept on thinking, well, shoot, they killed all these incarcerated men. I hope I hope they were compensated. But in that the murderers, because it was, the way they did it with the gas, I mean, that totally subdued the threat, if there was a threat, and then they went in
Yeah,
there. Yeah.
I mean, so I mean, so when they went to take back the prison, again, on the fifth day, there was no inciting incident. There was nothing that happened
Mhm.
that made them have to stop negotiating and go in. So it was just a political decision that we're going to show the power of the state. First, they shot gas into the prison from helicopters, which incapacitated everybody, but also it caused a huge, dense smoke cloud. Then they went in with rifles blazing and just shot into the cloud. They couldn't see. They couldn't see who they were shooting or what they were shooting. So it was really just an incredible massacre, and it's been called the most deadly day of violence on United States soil, mainland soil, since the Civil War. So
Mhm.
it was horrific. Nobody was prosecuted for it. Nobody was prosecuted for the deaths that happened at Attica. 41 people died.
Right. Yeah. And I just thought when, when you note in the writings about the film, that it was the most deadly day of combat or really slaughter since the Civil War. And I'm thinking Civil War, we're looking at imprisonment and we're thinking about enslavement. And it's like, like, wow, just guns blazing, literally. Wow. So what's your hope for the work? And what's your hope for this work? It's you gotta, it's gonna be on Showtime. What week is it? Is it opening this week?
It's opening Saturday, November 6th on Showtime across the country.
Right.
My hope is that people watch the film, as many people as possible. We've got incredible reviews of the film, incredible reaction to the film at the film festivals we've been at. I think it's if not the best film I've ever made, definitely one of the best films I've ever made. And I think it's a very, very gut-wrenching and emotional film. I'm hoping that for the moment, when people see this film and it's a film that sticks with you and you take something away from, I hope that people think about the 2 million people that are incarcerated, in this country, and the 2 million people that aren't going to see the night sky tonight, and think about what a waste of humanity, what a waste of intelligence, what a waste of man and woman power, people power, that we have by just putting people in prison.
Yeah. And so where do you get your resiliency isn't quite the word I'm thinking about, but what keeps you going? Are any ancestors standing there with you, kind of like whispering in your ear when you're sleeping, like, okay, Stanley, this is you need to go in this direction, or this would be a great story for you to tell next?
No, I mean, I think that again, I've been really fortunate, really honored to be able to tell and work on the films and work on the stories that I've been able to work on. It's just a real honor. I haven't had to compromise a lot of what I do. And again, I mean, it keeps me going because I'm able to tell these stories that might not reach the general public if I didn't tell them. So that keeps me going.
Yeah. Well, we're really happy that you're there, doing this hard work. You, and this time your co-director and your media company, Firelight. Is it Firelight Media?
Firelight Media, yeah.
Yeah. You just, everything that comes from your studio is like, yep. We were doing the Inkisi, we like put the hammer and like knock the nail, like, yep, we got that. And because I remember Ghosts of Attica was the film. That's all we had for so long. And now we have a story, we hear the voices. It's just so wonderful. And it's such an honor, to be able to honor those men who were there at the table trying to keep people safe, honoring their word. Everybody came together. There were no groups, it's like we're all one people. It was sort of like what happened in Haiti, like everybody here is Black, everyone here is Haitian. There's no fractions or anything like that. I think Dessalines said that. So you just, I hope the answers keep on shining. You're shining, through you, through the cinema. Thank you so much for the work. And,
Thank you.
and I hope, that you're able to like continue as long as you want to. And I hope that's like a long, long, long time to come.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Cool,
Thank you.
cool. Yeah, so I'm gonna close with sharing my screen, with the trailer. Yeah, so folks, make sure you check it out on Showtime, and then when it's available, buy it for your home viewing. And I'm sure there might be maybe some educational resources. I know there are books that just came out because I saw you had done a Zoom with in New York with a class, and the author of the book that looks at the 50th anniversary of Attica. And I don't know his name to call his name, but you can call it.
Well, I mean, I think one of the main sources of the film is a film by a woman, Heather Thompson, who wrote a book called Blood in the Water,
Mm.
that won the Pulitzer Prize a few years ago about the Attica Rebellion. Maybe the book is not old, maybe 3 or 4 years old,
Okay.
but it's available. It's an incredible book, relooking at the Attica Rebellion. She's one of the advisors on the film. It's called Blood in the Water.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Any other after the film plugs you want to put in for people that want to know more besides this book, Blood in the Water?
No, not really. I think that's a great.
All righty, cool.
It's a big fat book, and it's a great start. Anything that you want to know about.
All right, cool. Well, thank you so much, and congratulations on another wonderful work.
Thank you so much.
All right, you take good care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. So I'm going to share my screen now, folks, and we're going to watch I think we're going to watch. Let's see. I'm screen sharing. Stop the share. Oh, let me find it. Oh, darn. I am having difficulty. Oh, I'm sad here. Let's try one more time. Let's see. Oh, here we are. Okay.
Attica was fear.
There was 70% black and brown prisoners, all white guards. What could go wrong?
Grab the guards, grab the keys. All hell broke loose.
Tell me this, are these primarily blacks?
Guys were complaining about the basic things like toothpaste. A roll of toilet paper lasts you a month.
The inmates were considered like animals.
They beat you up in your cell and then they take you to segregation, and sometimes you don't come back.
Have the inmates made any demands?
There are all kinds of demands for change in the whole world.
This had to be mediated, otherwise it was going to end in disaster. They wanted to use those weapons.
Put your hands in the air and you will not be harmed.
You will not be harmed. You will not be harmed. But that was bullshit.
They want to kill us.
We are men.
He was waking up America.
Somebody had to take a stand.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for joining us with our wonderful guest, Director Stanley Nelson, joining us to talk about Attica, which you can see this weekend on Showtime. Join us at Wanda's Picks on Wednesday mornings from 8 to 10 Pacific time. It's a radio show, or you can just visit us at wandaspicks.com.